Greetings, and here we are with another delightful video from me to you through the power of the internet via the YouTube video sharing platform. And this is for Vaesen, the core rulebook from Free League Publishing, published back in 2022. I believe it's an Any award-winning ttrpg. It is a dice pool system, very popular amongst a lot of new to ttrpgs is game designers. The book cover has sort of this like fabric canvas surface to it, specifically a canvas surface to it, which I actually do very much enjoy. A long time ago, I took a huge number of art classes in painting and sculptures, and I almost practically have like 2 years of college art credits in art that it's not attached to any degree or anything, but it was a waste of time and effort just to have my hand and boxing fracture to go bad in it, but which is one of the reasons why I'm not so great at video games anymore. That hurts, by the way, doing that motion. But anyways, this is Vaesen, a Nordic horror role-playing game. It's a fairly thick book. It has good heft to it. The cardboard is fairly good quality overall. Basic binding, though. It's just the standard binding, insewn in groups of, 16 pages or something like that. Has that kind of old book page look on the anti-page section. Personally, I feel that this is kind of wasted. There should be like quick reference rules for players in the front here, and in the back there should be quick reference rules for the game master. But yeah, this is the title page with the credits for the game designers and everyone that worked on this project, as well as the playtesters. Then you have the credits. The credit page is moderately, let's just say it's okay. Yeah, it could be a little bit bigger and there could be a little more detail in there, but the large point of most dice pool systems is to be focused largely on the story that is occurring in the game. Now, the common problem in the storyteller-esqueness of some tabletop role-playing games, where it goes from a tabletop role-playing game into a story game, is that oftentimes the game master becomes too much of a storyteller, and they override a lot of decisions on players. And I've been testing that in my campaigns and adventures, trying to see where the sweet spot is in relationship to it. Like how much set dressing can you put into a scene before the players are not happy anymore? And surprisingly enough, not very much can you put into a scene before players start getting antsy. Generally, I find that most storytellers are actually the worst game masters around. I said most, not all. We have the introduction right here. We got this cool little Vaesen full page art of what looks like demonic or spirit ravens. In some ancient cultures, ravens and crows are the birds that come to take away the souls of the dead. You got a nice little introduction to Vaesen, a guide on the book, a little quick blurb about the guide, the book, and the game. What is a role-playing game? Explaining the concept of the unseen. The Vaesen, which are the spirit beings, monsters, etc., supernatural beings, have the capacity to become unseen against almost all normal humans and animals, except for some animals will have the ability, as well as a handful of humans will have the ability to see them in spite of this. It usually is a byproduct of being closely tied to a traumatic event of someone dying or a supernatural force that occurred early on, occurred at some point in their life. I should actually grab my knife because it makes a handy dandy pointer. I think I misplaced my knife. And Sassy goes running away. But anyways, you got the Mythic North, Vaesen, Sight, which is the ability that your player characters have that allows them to see the Vaesen in spite of the fact that they don't want to be seen sometimes. Talking about what kind of genre this system is. It's a horror, mystery, and adventure game system. Talking about fighting against the Vaesen, the form of the game, and so much more. A little poem right here about Thursday's children. Conflicts, rolling dice, 6 basic principles of the system, talking about what dice you roll in the system as well. You roll d6s by default, just so you know. Some nice artwork, very in point for the era in which the system takes place. Playing your character or your player character. It talks about character creation overall. How many points if you were to assign points to various attributes or skills that your character would have based on their age group, which is interesting in itself. A little blurb talking about gender roles, which is actually quasi incorrect. Largely in ancient time, a long time ago, it was not basically one group being over another, but basically society organizing itself in a manner that allowed for the most optimal use of various groups of people. Men typically took on high-risk jobs such as military, construction, stuff like that. And women typically were teachers, clothes makers, stuff like that. So typically women were in charge of those things and were free to make decisions on how those things were done. And men were in charge of the things that they had to do, which is military and construction and stuff like that. And pretty much military means you're in charge of dealing with hostile forces, external and internal. And construction is basically in charge, having to deal with all the organization of building cities and stuff like that. So there is a slight inaccuracy in explanation of gender roles in the book. It was just a natural evolution of basically dividing up roles that best suited various groups or individuals. And on occasion, some women would go into the military or go into construction, and some men would stay home. That was rare exception and not always the case. You have a section on characteristics, such as your attributes, which is there's 4 major attributes. There's physical, precision, logic, and empathy. Physical is basically a combination of strength and constitution. Precision is dexterity, and dexterity in itself. Logic is a hybrid of intelligence and wisdom. And empathy is largely a touch of wisdom with charisma in the system. I'm talking in terms of Dungeons and Dragons. And then they have the skill lists, which basically divide out very similarly to Dungeons and Dragons. If you play Dungeons and Dragons, you would understand very much that, hey, ranged combat is tied to precision, which is dexterity. Ranged combat being with bows and throwing knives and crossbows and stuff like that. Medicine is a precision skill. Interestingly enough, they swapped from wisdom to dexterity in that regard. Learning, vigilance is logic. Inspiration, manipulation, and observation are empathy skills. Talking about skills, which are basically your skills in Dungeons and Dragons. Talents are essentially feats. like in Dungeons and Dragons. Miscellaneous information is extra stuff. Relationships are basically the obvious, how your character relates to other people in their family and various social groups. Then you have resources, which is basically your equipment, how much wealth you have access to, and stuff like that. You got a random roll table for resources right here, and you have a random roll table or D66 table for momentums, mementos, your equipment and mementos. Description, conditions. It quickly explains what kind of conditions your character can have. You have a little bit section on the advantage mechanic in the system. You have various conditions such as exhausted, battered, wounded, which are physical conditions, and then you have mental conditions: angry, frightened, and hopeless. They quickly explain examples of advantages here, and questions for your experience points. So you get experience points through the right questions and stuff. You have archetypes, which ties into the life paths. Archetypes are essentially classes. However, this system being not a level-based system, but a occupation-esque skill system that's halfway zone between something like Dungeons and Dragons and Call of Cthulhu. There is no leveling up in these skills, in these classes or anything like that, but your characters can generally become better at, say, a particular skill set or field of knowledge, much like Call of Cthulhu. But in the case of the system, you have archetypes such as academic, doctor, and so forth, and the system does encourage you to create your own archetypes as well, but you should in fact talk with your game master before you finalize it. The standard archetype will have a section describing it right here. You have a name, motivation, trauma, common traumas. Pick one of these or create a new one if you have anything. You have a dark secret, relationships section, and then down here is the mechanical stuff. Such in the case of the academic, you have your main attribute is logic, your main skill is learning, talents are bookworm, udrate, knowledge is reassuring, resource level is 4 to 6, your equipment is a book collection or map book, writing utensils, liquor, or slide rule. Now, I think they missed a few pieces of punctuation in here, because it's actually two sections of either or with some miscellaneous items in between. So equipment is book collection or map book, either or, and then you get one of those two, and then you get one of these items as well: writing utensils and liquor. For whatever reason, you get liquor. Oh wait. Writing utensils, and then you got liquor or slide rule. So you pick between these two right here. Sorry, I had like a brain for 5 seconds there. You have doctor, hunter, occultist, officer, priest, private detective, servant, vagabond, writer. And that's it for the archetypes that they give you for the system. And then you have this really nice little section with a nice piece of artwork, nice little sketch, a little piece about a mermaid, and skills, which are very much like they are in, say, Call of Cthulhu / Dungeons and Dragons. Basically, when you want to do a skill test, you roll for it and you see where your result is. It explains how to do skill tests, the means and ends, failed tests, which are one of the results, pushing the roll, much like Call of Cthulhu, broken to succeed, a little section on the story must go on, conditions, levels of difficulty for the game master, helping each other, how to help each other in skills, parallel actions, what happens if two or more players are trying to do things at the exact same time, same time or something like that. Yeah. Opposed roles. Advantages down here yet again. You got your equipment, extra success. Ever so often, as you can see, that there is some nice bit of artwork here. You also have, this is the list of all the skills in the system. You got agility, force, medicine, ranged combat, stealth, learning, investigation, vigilance, inspiration, manipulation, observation, and that's it. And then we're on to talents. And talents, as I said before, are like feats in this system. Feats from Dungeons and Dragons. However, it's more in line with something like from Dungeons and Dragons 3.5, where it's just a tiny little bit of something, like such as like Bookworm here. The academics talents. Gain +2 to learning when looking for clues in books or libraries. Or say the doctors in the doctor's talent section here, gain +2 to fear tests when frightened by dead or damaged human bodies. Whereas feats in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition have multiple things that come with them. Feats in Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition, 3.5 edition, and Pathfinder 1st edition oftentimes were very simple little things that were specific to a very specific situation in which your character's this little ability happens to work for. And you have all the different, 3 or 4 different talents for each different class or occupation. Then you have some general talents, which is a nice little list, like battle experience, brave, combat trained, contracts, coward, and so forth. You got a little section on conflicts and injury, which is basically combat and healing. Explaining combat here, the initiative and rounds, swapping initiative between players, zones and distance, interesting zones, circumstances, fighting Vaesen, a little bit of rules explaining how to fight them or deal with them, actions in combat. It lists out the various actions: attack with melee weapon, attack with ranged weapon, unarmed attack, wrestle, push, grapple, flee, persuade, lure enemy to a certain place, perform a ritual, often takes several rounds, survey the situation, treat injuries, climb a wall. And then you have typical actions here, such as draw weapon, swap weapon, stand up, dodge, parry, break free, hold, chase, resist magic, shout more than a few words, turn around, close a door, put out a candle, move within a zone, move into the next zone, take cover. Close combat rules, ranged combat rules, dodging and parrying rules, holding and wrestling, fleeing and chasing, ambush and sneak attacks. You got information on injuries, such as broken physical injury, broken by mental injury, critical injuries here. You got a nice little table here for physical critical injuries right here, which is a D66. And mental critical injuries. Defect information, insight. Nice little piece of artwork right there. And so much more. Special effects such as fear, explosions, fire, poison, falling damage rules, hungry, tired, thirsty, healing injuries, treating critical injuries, healing conditions. Section on services and establishments, equipment information right here. Modifier for resources for your character. Shopping during a mystery information right down here, as well as armor and cover rules. armor information, like such as light armor, medium, and heavy armor, and what it does for protection, agility modifier, and availability likelihood. You got cover rules right here, as well as various other pieces of equipment down through here. Ranges in like cameras, magnifying glasses, and so forth. Services and establishments, melee weapons, and ranged weapons. And then you go into Chapter 6, which is the Society and Headquarters, which is basically setting up your organization for hunting mysteries in Nordic nations. The Mythic North and Uppsala, which is basically your starting point for your adventures. This is a campaign setting for your party to explore. Got a bunch of nice artwork in here. And then you have the Ash Tree Wife. This is interesting. Let's see here. Back up for 5 seconds here. Rules for Vaesen in combat, Vaesen stats. Okay, Trollcraft, Cures, Enchantments. Alrighty, so this is, we're starting into, I had like a break for 5 seconds, and I was paging through so fast I kind of forgot where I was getting to. We have various creatures, or Vaesen, in the world. The prior few pages just before this was basically mechanics relating to them. Church Grim, the various rituals tied to them, as well as their magical powers. So, like, say here you got Ghost. You got a nice piece of Ghost here, art. You got a ritual relating to them. Examples of conflicts with ghosts. The secret tied to it. Characteristics that the ghost will have, as well as magical powers, such as enchant, curse, and cannot be harmed in combat. You got a giant information here, such as you got various conditions, your characteristics, magical powers related to the giant, combat rule information for it, such as fist or club damage, boulder, jump, or bite, and then a ritual that's tied to them. A lindworm, a mirror, a mermaid, a mean. If I remember correctly, they are specifically children that got lost and died in the forest, and then they kind of come back. And they are looking for people to be with them. The Neck, the Night Raven, the Niece, the Revenant, Sea Serpent, Sectus, which looks like a bug dragon person, troll information, a Vetter, a werewolf, the Will-o'-the-Wisp, Wood Wife, non-player character information back here, such as soldiers, police officers, doctors, professor, student, farmer, blacksmith, maid, priest, coachman, valet, hunter, street child, dock worker, merchant, seer, journalist. And then we have a section on mystery, which basically gets into the first little fun stuff for the Game Master. Dance of the Dreams adventure, with some background tables and other important information for the adventure that's in the very back of the book. And then we have nice character sheets right here, which is really nice to have character sheets in your books, because people might not necessarily find the character sheets it's in the store when they find this book, because they might have been sold out. But anyways, you got, it's a system that requires at least brain for 5 seconds here. 2 sheets, yeah, just 2 character sheets. One for all your major skills, and then basically the second page right back here for all your upgrades and your special equipment. Then you have a handy little index, and the system happens to sit around, say, just over 230 pages, which is a nice number of pages for any tabletop role-playing game system. This is actually pretty neat overall. This, by the way, is one of the systems that inspired Candela Obscura, or was one of the bases for a lot of the mechanics in Candela Obscura. I have not run this, so I do not know how well this runs. But anyways, it's pretty neat overall. It looks to have like everything that you need necessarily. It does cover a lot of the death and healing mechanics and the various combat conditions that can occur if your characters get into a really nasty fight, but also has a good range of skills and traits. It's for resolving situations outside of combat, so if you don't want to fight the Vaesen, you can absolutely do so. You can easily interact. There's a good variety range of various skills and feats, or talents as it's called in the system, for a variety of things, but you also have enough talents in the system to get the idea of what they kind of cover or what the system is balanced for or built for. So you can easily go ahead and make your own if the game master allows them. So there you go. Overall, this feels like it should be like a 3.5 or 3.75 overall. There is a good range of products that Free League Publishing has released for the system. Several card sets for actions and various other things. A few nice little adventures and setting books for, say, like Britain and Ireland and a few other regions of Europe as well so far. I think they are currently doing a Kickstarter for the starter set for Vaesen, which has been in high demand by everyone who plays the system and who wants to play the system. Starter sets, beginner boxes are an absolute must in this modern day and age for a TTRPG. If you are making a TTRPG, you really need a starter set or a beginner box that has the essential, reference cards, a starter adventure for the parties, maybe some pre-made characters so people can see how they are made or put together, the basic rules and all this little essentials that a game master needs to not just teach the players how to play, but how they can run the system themselves. So there you go. Overall, I like it. It's definitely superior to Candela Obscura and covers pretty much a lot of the same ground, or a little bit earlier in human history, allegorical parallel in human history than Candela Obscura. This is a older system than Candela Obscura, so this is straight out the superior option. That is also better supported than Candela Obscura. So if you had a choice between Candela Obscura or this, get this outright, straight up. Just ignore Candela Obscura. But that's just it. If you enjoy this video, please leave a like on the video and subscribe. If you leave a like, subscribe, and comment or share this video, that will increase the likelihood of me continuing to cover or page through the various Vaesen products from Free League Publishing. Otherwise, if no one really cares or is after the first few products, I might just like slide it off into the side and might visit it back in a few years. Okay? So thank you very much for watching. Have a delightful day, a nice night, a wonderful weekend, magnificent month, and see you next time. Ciao.